How you guys all doing? Good? Awesome. So today, I'm going to teach you guys all about growth hacking, from what it is to how you can do it for your business, and I'm going to actually give you real life examples. So let's get started. This is my Twitter handle. I don't know what the hashtag for the event is or the Twitter tag for the event, but you can use that as well. So before we get started, there's one quote that I love by Adam Nash that I want to go over. Growth is important, and most great companies take it seriously. If you can't figure out how to grow your business and you don't actually focus on it, like really be dedicated, you're not going to grow. But before we can get into growth hacking and how you can actually improve your business, there's two things we need to first go over. Number one, who are your customers? If you can't figure out who your customers are, you won't be able to target them, right? If you don't know that your customer is, let's say, someone who has a car that drives to work every single day. Let's say if you're Drivey, and I do apologize if I mispronounce the name, right? Then you won't know who you're targeting. You gotta know your customers first, because without knowing your customers, you won't know how to reach them. Which leads me to number two. How do you reach your customers, right? More than just, hey, my customers are male who make more than $100,000 a year. Where can I go and find them, right? Is it Twitter? Is it Facebook? Once I get a few of them, how do I get more of them? How do I get my customers to get me more customers? So now that you know all of this, let's get started. And what I want to start with is channels. Everyone, you guys all do AdWords, pay-per-click ads? Some of you? Facebook ads? Facebook? Twitter? All right, so you guys are on these channels. Well, these channels, the big issue with them is that they get crowded really fast. Here's an example. Dropbox. Big company. They're everywhere. And with Dropbox, they tried Google AdWords. Well, AdWords for Dropbox costs $233 to $388 a sign-up. If you're spending that much on a sign-up, when your customers are only paying you $99 a year, plus there's cost, right? If you pay Dropbox $99 a year, they don't make $99 on you. There's cost for support, there's cost to service you, right? All the hosting infrastructure, all of those expenses add up. So in this case, that would be a product fail. So how else can you grow your company? Well, there's 5 main ways that I'm going to discuss today. All right, and before we get into that, here's an example of Dropbox. So how did they grow and become a multi-billion-dollar company? Well, they did it by getting you to do things such as refer a friend, tweet out, that you signed up for Dropbox. All of these things helped them gain more customers without having to spend hundreds of dollars on paid acquisition. So now let's get into the 5 main points. Number 1, integrations. Number 2, work email. And when I mean work email, I'll give you examples of all of these. Work email is like at Microsoft.com, so your company URL. So it would be neil@kissmetrics.com. That's an example of a work email. Embed codes, right? How you embed YouTube videos. Powered by badges. And last but not least, free stuff. So let's start with integrations, right? Are you down with OPP? Other people's platform. And there's a ton of platforms out there that you could be leveraging. Shopify, over 30,000 businesses. Salesforce, over 100,000 businesses. Box, over 120,000 businesses. 37 Signals, over 150,000. Yammer, 200,000 plus. Constant Contact, over 400,000. GitHub, 1.5 million. MailChimp, over 2 million. Google Apps, 4+ million. FreshBooks, 4.5 million. Google Analytics, 30 million. Evernote, as well, over 30 million. And last but not least, Dropbox, over 50 million. See, when you take your website and your product and you integrate it within other people's products, you now have access to a user base. If someone like Dropbox has over 50 million users and you develop something that plugs into Dropbox, you now have an instant pool of users. Sure, it requires some marketing, but it's much more cheaper, cost-effective, and easier than it would be if you actually had to go out there and, let's say, do pay-per-click advertising to 50 million people, right? So when you're doing integrations, how do you make them work? Well, first is integrations make your product better. And what I mean by this is, if you're Drivey, you wouldn't want to integrate into Dropbox. It doesn't make sense. Your integrations have to make sense, right? So figure out what integrations out there, other companies, platforms that you can leverage that make sense, in which your product has to benefit their users gain value from your product. It's a win-win situation, right? If there is no benefit, it doesn't make sense to actually do an integration. Don't do it just because someone has a lot of users, but instead do it because if you did an integration, it would actually make your users want to use you more, plus it would help their users come onto your product and actually be happy with that platform that promoted you. You also want to measure conversions and revenue, right? And the reason this is important is a lot of people just look at this, right? You know how I said Salesforce? 100,000 plus customers. Dropbox, over 50 million. Now, if Salesforce is converting at 2% and Dropbox converts at 2%, it doesn't mean Dropbox is better than Salesforce. Why, you may ask? Because the average revenue you get from a Salesforce customer is probably going to be a lot more money than the revenue you achieve from a Dropbox customer. And the reason being is that the Salesforce customer is spending a lot more money. So you need to be really careful. When you're doing these integrations, track revenue and conversions. You also need to discover more valuable integrations. As I mentioned earlier, focus on the ones that are actually relevant. You also want to ask your users about integrations. Find out what they want from you. Find out what they want you to integrate into. And most importantly, you want to create partner pages. Promote your partners that you integrate with, see if they can promote you. You can also try to create landing pages and rank organically for, let's say, other integrations that you may not be ranking for. A good example of this is Zapier. They rank for a ton of integrations, even though they're not integrated with these sites yet. Number 2, work emails, right? Here's an example. Try using your work email address. Join your company's social network for free. This is Yammers. All good examples of leveraging work emails, because once they enter in the work email, they can ask you to invite other members. And this creates a snowball effect, where one person may invite 5 people may invite 25, 25 becomes 100, 100 becomes 500, and it just continually grows, right? Leverage email. This is how Facebook grew. Here's another one from Box, right? Enter in 5 of your company email address. So when you're doing work email addresses, there's a few things that you need to actually do. One, you need to optimize the onboarding. It's not a numbers game. It's actually about integrations. So in usage, if someone actually signs up, I'd rather have 5 people who sign up and actually use the product versus getting 25 people to go to the site, sign up, and never even use a product. So go after quality over quantity. Quality will eventually lead to revenue. Quantity may not. Show people who they should also be following. When you get people to invite others, make sure you're optimizing the onboarding experience where you're getting them to follow other people, communicate with other people so that way they're getting the most value out of your product or service. You also need to leverage invitations during onboarding. So just like how someone else invited your customer to use your product, you need to get them to invite more people. This is a viral loop, right? If you can make a full circle, what ends up happening is one user will invite another and it continues to snowball. You also need to measure your growth day over day. How many people did you invite today over yesterday? And if you have a positive growth rate, you're doing well. You also need to discover engaging interactions. So it's not just about, hey, how can I get people to interact and invite people, but what's causing people to interact with each other. If you know the specific elements that cause engagement and stickiness, you can promote that more throughout your application and cause more of it. So number 3, embeds. You guys are all familiar with this, right? YouTube. You go to YouTube, you like a video, you can embed it on your blog, your website, wherever you want. You want to do a presentation, you can go to SlideShare, you can take SlideShare, you can embed it and showcase it to the world, right? So embed codes are out there. When you're using them and you're trying to do it within your app, the first thing you have to realize is, why should someone use your embed code? Just having the ability to have an embed code on your site isn't enough. People embed YouTube videos because they're great. They want to share the content. People embed SlideShare presentations because it helps teach and educate their users. If you don't give a reason for people to embed, they're not going to embed. And when you're doing this, you need to make it as easy as possible. Don't just say, hey, if they want to embed, they need a login, they need to find the embed code, then they got to go to their site. Make it very simple, right? Let anyone embed. Give them instructions if they have different types of platforms or sites. So if they're using WordPress as CMS, say, click here to embed this on WordPress. Make it as simple as possible, as that will lead to the most amount of embeds. You also want to track how well they do. Just because someone's embedding it on their site and you're getting millions of people doesn't mean your embeds are going to do well. You need to figure out how to get people to click the embeds, watch the content or read the content or whatever it may be, and click through back to your site and sign up. And you do this all by testing relevant call to actions at the end of the video. So when you watch a YouTube video, even if it's embedded, it'll say, hey, you want to watch more? And you also need to optimize for search. You shouldn't obsess about it, but you should optimize, because embeds create a lot of links. Search engines like Google, right, base a lot of their algorithm, and same with Bing and all the other search engines out there, base a lot of their algorithm based on how many links your site has. Now, if you can get more people to link back to you, the higher you're going to rank. But don't obsess about it, and don't use rich anchor text, as it can hurt you. Number 4, powered by. This is all simple, right? You've seen these. SurveyMonkey has this, right? After you take a survey, it says, powered by SurveyMonkey. Create your own survey. Now, these powered by badges are out there everywhere on the web, and they're really effective, in which people look at them. If they had a great experience using the product or service, they end up signing up for their own. That's actually how we grew KISS Insights. It works extremely well, right? LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter all have powered by, just in a different format. There's our social sharing buttons. So you don't have to use a typical powered by that you're seeing out there. So how do you optimize your powered by? Well, first, what are you powering? People don't want to just put powered by for the sake of it. You have to make it flow in the user flow. So for example, you go to SurveyMonkey, you take a survey. If you like the survey, at the end it says, thank you for taking the survey. Would you like to create your own survey? This survey was powered by SurveyMonkey. Very effective, because if they created a great user experience, the flow actually goes really well, right? You can't just throw powered by on people's sites and expect them to do it. There has to be a reason. The other thing is you need to test a copy of the call to actions. So when we had KISS Insights, it was a survey at the bottom right corner of your website. We tested multiple variations, color schemes, things of that nature to get the most clicks. Because the more clicks you get, the more traffic goes back to your site, the more signups you can get. You also need to test and optimize landing pages. You don't want these powered bys just going to your home page. So if someone put a powered by on their site, let's say Yandex was powering it, right? And Yandex had it on their site. Well, when a visitor from Yandex comes back to my site because we're doing the powered by, I wouldn't just send them to my home page. I would create a landing page saying, hello Yandex user, right? Welcome to KISS Insights. Sign up for free or sign up for a 30-day trial. And just for you Yandex users, we're giving X, Y, and Z. That's very effective. And you want to continually test, optimize, and tweak these pages. You also need to track views, clicks, and conversions. The views is important because you'll get millions and millions of views, but if your conversions on the clicks aren't high, that means something's off, and you need to keep testing and tweaking it. You also want to track your lifetime value of your customer. If you can't figure out what a customer is worth in the long run, you won't know if it's profitable. Having all these widgets on people's sites powered by does cost money. And you also want to measure effectiveness of each site. You want to figure out why one user that sees it powered by does better and signs up and pays you more than other users. So last but not least, free stuff. Here's a great example, HubSpot. Now, if HubSpot offers marketing tools, when you leverage their marketing tools, they actually say, hey, want a free report, put in your email. And they're getting a ton of people to come. So instead of spending an arm and a leg on marketing, they're creating goodwill. And they're creating goodwill by creating awesome products, awesome material, awesome content, and they're doing it all, a lot of it, for free, but in exchange for your email address. And when you're signing up, they're collecting more data, and then they hand it to their sales reps and they try to close you. Another good example of free stuff is New Relic. They do something similar. Another one is doing marketing kits or content kits or design kits or development kits, whatever you want to end up calling it. By offering stuff for free, you can let people download it in exchange for their email address or their phone number or name, right? Whatever you want to do. You can then take this information and then you can sell to those users. Now here's how you can optimize your free offerings. One, and this is the most important one out of all of them, you need a map to the customer decision. Why would someone use whatever you're giving out for free? If it doesn't directly benefit them, right? Forget indirectly benefit, but if it doesn't directly benefit them, they're not going to do it. Just because something's free doesn't mean it's going to be popular. You actually have to go out there and make a conservative effort to give people something that they want and that they need. You have to solve their problems, right? You also, when you're doing this, you don't have to spend a ton of money on it. How many of you have blogs? All right, a few of you, that's good. So if you have a blog, you can probably take a lot of the content on your blog that people found really valuable, purpose it all together, right? Combine it, and then you can repurpose it, put it out there, combine it into a kit, offer it for a name and email address. Very effective strategy. You also want to educate your prospects. You can't expect them to give you a name and email, download something, and then buy from you or sign up, right? You need to give them so much value on the front end that they're like, wow, this company has awesome content, information. I wonder what their paid product looks like. You also want to test your ideas minimally. In other words, ghettoize them, right? Slap it together. Don't waste a lot of money on design. Once it starts working, you can spend more money on design, make it look professional, optimize for conversions. But don't waste your time on all of that kind of stuff at the beginning. And lastly, you want to measure and optimize for revenue. Just because something's free doesn't mean it's not costing you money. So you need to make sure that when you're giving away all this stuff for free, that you're optimizing and you're getting it to convert for you on the back end so that way it's actually a profitable channel. And when you're doing all of this, just keep one thing in mind. Figure out what's best for your product. If it's not really good for your product and it doesn't benefit the users, don't waste your time doing it. And last but not least, you have no excuses to make money, right? I don't know how it is here, but a lot of times in the US, people are like, I'm going to build an awesome product, I'm going to grow it, get a ton of traction, and I'm going to create the biggest user base. That's fine. But hey, when did making money not become sexy? Making money is good. Try to figure out how to grow your user base. Charge them. Provide value. They'll have no issues paying you. Make money. That's pretty much it. Thank you guys for having me.